A quick reminder to our witness that before speaking, please wait until I recognize you by name. And when you are speaking, your mic should be, when you are not speaking, your mic should be on mute. Members of the committee, I would like to welcome our witness. He's on video conference. It's Master Corporal retired Kelly Carter. Mr., you're going to have 5 minutes for your opening remarks, and after that, members of the committee will ask you questions. So please open your mic and go ahead, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And House of Commons Standing Committee on Veteran Affairs Canada, third-party contracting out of services. My name is Master Corporal retired Kelly Carter, a 30-year veteran of the Canadian Armed Forces Army Logistics Branch. I retired out of Garrison Edmonton in Alberta on 14 August 2013 and have 6 recognized operational and service-related physical injuries, all chronic with varying degrees of mobility issues and pain management I deal with drug-free. I left the military with all my weight-bearing joints suffering from osteoarthritis and was bone-on-bone from what has now been mandated for Veteran Affairs Canada to recognize as cumulative joint trauma. The Land Force Command Physical Fitness Standard, also called the Battle Fitness Test or BFT, and weekly training for the annual test of forced rucksack marches with a 25 kilogram load, I directly blame for approximately 75% of my cumulative joint trauma, now legislated and mandated as recognized pensionable condition by the Veterans Charter and Veteran Affairs Canada. I served on 2 tours of duty in airborne special operations positions and self-identify approximately 15% of my cumulative joint trauma on airborne parachuting and operational missions. I was a professional athlete for the Canadian Armed Forces triathlon and swimming teams, and while the cycling and swimming was lower impact, the running training for the Olympic triathlon distance of running 10 kilometers, I contribute to 10% of my cumulative joint trauma. I would like to bring forth to this committee my dealings with VAC, third-party contractors that Veteran Affairs Canada has farmed out their federal public service duties to. I have had horrible experiences with third-party contractors, including the organization doing business as Canadian Veterans Vocational Rehabilitation Services, or CVVRS. Once in my home in Calgary, Alberta in May 2017, and several times in BC in late 2020. On 9 May 2017, a man who worked for CVVRS entered my home in Calgary and had me answer a series of questions pertaining to my personal life, income, expenses, and physical tests I can best describe as dog tricks. While standing in my living room, he had me conduct a series of physical tests while he sat at my dining room table taking notes. The tests had me pretending to pick up a box, simulating walking up and down stairs, and to go down and crouch like a tiger about to pounce. At one point, he then asked me to go down on my hands and knees and crawl around my floor while he stood up and watched me crawl around. It was at this point my Irish anger came out. I terminated the testing, asked him to leave my home, and escorted him out of my home. I then filed a formal written complaint to my VAC caseworker, Brian Rees, and later initiated a ministerial inquiry to the VAC minister and Calgary Member of Parliament, Kent Herr. My letter has been provided as documentary evidence for translation and public record. My other incidents with CVVRS was in Victoria, BC in fall 2020 on a telephone with a woman by the name of Anika. When I asked her for a list of all the Canadian companies that want to hire veterans like myself to be sent to my email address, she laughed at me, mocked me, and thought it was funny. During an ATIP request, I found evidence of her mocking me on my VAC notes. I was forthright with CVVRS that if they could not provide me with the list I had requested, they were a group of fake, phony baloney frauds who were not there to actually help veterans find a job, but to administer to VAC proof we were applying for 5 to 7 jobs per week, not actually helping us find employment. My VAC caseworker based out of Nanaimo, BC, whom I had never met in my life. She was a work from home in pajamas employee, lied to me when she said the CVVRS organization were not the same CVVRS organization I had dealt with in Calgary on 9 May 2017. In 2019, while I was employed with the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, I wanted to pursue a course held twice a year in BC. I completed the Veteran Affairs Canada Education Training Benefit short course forms required, and with a cover letter, asked VAC to contact me for other questions I had. I missed the spring and fall 2019 courses with no response from VAC. We are threatened by the letter of authorization, which has been provided as documentary evidence for translation, that we cannot enroll in these programs until authority has been given by VAC or we will not be reimbursed. During a 2020-2021 formal investigation I ordered to be conducted by Veteran Affairs Canada, I was told by my caseworker, Ms. Danielle Rowland Dilbert, that VAC does not administer the education training benefit, which is $80,000 for myself.
So
it is handled by a third party.
Sorry to interrupt you. The 5 minutes is over. So, Master Corporal retired Kelly Carter, maybe that during questions you will be able to finish your intervention. So right now I have to go to MPs to ask questions. They're going to have just a round of 6 minutes each, so you can share your time. And I would like to invite Mr. Blake Richard, first Vice President of the committee. Mr. Richards.
Thank you, and thank you, Master Corporal Carter, for not only your testimony today, but for your service to this country.
Thank you.
And I want you to know that we are, doing everything we can to make sure that the services provided to you are what you deserve for the service that you have provided to this country. And to that end, we've heard a lot of concerns about this change that's being made.
Mr. Richard, sorry to interrupt you also, but we have vote. I stop your time. You only have 29 seconds, but we have to have a discussion between us because we have 30 minutes to go to vote, and I'd like to have a consensus. So, yeah.
Might I suggest possibly giving each party 2.5 minutes so that we use a little bit of the time and we still have time for everyone to get there for the votes?
So there was a proposition there, 2.5 minutes each group. So, yeah, a total of 10 minutes. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to go for that. 2.5 minutes. So you already have 30 seconds. Please go ahead.
So apologies, Master Corporal Carter. The government has moved a time allocation, which means they're trying to close off debate on a bill in the House of Commons, and so there's a vote that's been requested, and unfortunately that'll cut your time a little short. But I do appreciate you being here, and I want to make sure we maximize the time we have with you. I guess the first question I would have, we've heard a lot of concerns about this changeover on this contract. Do you feel that veterans have been properly consulted in this change?
We have not been consulted at all on this change, other than this opportunity for me to speak today, because I've been a veterans advocate and watching what was going on, and I was glad that I was invited today.
Thank you. And that's obviously appalling to hear that veterans have not been consulted. I mean, when you're talking about a change that's going to have significant impact. I'm just going to actually ask you as well, last meeting, I don't know if you have been following along, but we heard something that I was quite shocked and appalled by, which is that over the last month, in the lead up to the changeover tomorrow, case managers at VAC have been told not to initiate any new medical or psychosocial services for veterans during this transition period. Does that concern you, and what kind of an impact do you think that's going to have on veterans, particularly those who've come with mental health challenges?
Mr. Chair and Mr. Member of Parliament Blake Edwards, I am starting to see the same writing on the wall as we saw as public servants when Phoenix was rolled out without a proper test trial with one department in the federal public service to try it out. I am very deeply concerned that this has not been discussed, rolled out, or implemented properly. And when the switch turns to on, it may become an utter failure, just like the Phoenix payroll system was on day one when it was first turned on.
Thank you again, and thank you again for your service to this country.
Thank you, Member of Parliament.
Thank you, Mr. Richards. And who's going to miss Mrs. Valdez for 2 minutes and a half? Please go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Master Corporate Carter, thank you so much for joining us today and for the many years of service that you've provided to this country.
Thank you.
In this committee, past witnesses have requested for VAC to provide an experience to them that will be inclusive to meet each of the unique needs of veterans. This new contract proposes to customize services for each veteran, and then also then consult with veterans as well in your overall service and in the plan that they're intending to have with you. I just wanted your thoughts on that.
I've had dealings with the organization that I've heard is going to be taking over. They've had extensive experience with veterans in dealing with physical aspects of their injuries. Anything outside of that context, I cannot comment on. They do have a very comprehensive third-party billing system in place. However, anything outside of physical, I have no comments. I have no knowledge of how this is going to be rolled out.
And part of the changes would enable veterans like yourself to provide feedback easily on a regular basis. Just wanted your input on that as well.
I do not feel that the Veteran Affairs Canada current system, including the ombudsperson system, is reacting to and listening to veterans. I personally have spoken with ombudsperson staff about issues and concerns. They are more inclined to want to close the file than to actually action the file so they can close the file and move on. And I've yet to speak with any of the ombudspersons in person regarding any of these issues or concerns.
Thank you. I think I'm out of
30 seconds.
I just wanted your input overall. I mean, you've touched on how these changes will impact you. Is there anything else you wanted to share, since I can't really ask a more thorough question with you right now?
Yeah, I think Member of Parliament Blake Edwards is right on track when he says that he is concerned, as well as many people. This may be like the Phoenix payroll system, where it's being turned on day one, which I heard on this meeting today was tomorrow, 22 November, and it is not ready to handle the numbers I've seen, which is approximately 500,000 living veterans in Canada.
Thank you, Mrs. Valdez. And maintenant, je voudrais inviter Monsieur.
Now I would like to invite Mr. Luc Desilets for 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Thank you, Chair. My question will be very simple. How are you so certain that the system will not function? I understand that you had a bad experience, but what are you basing yourself on when you say that?
Was there going to be a translation coming across?
Master Corporal Retired Kelly Carter, at the bottom of your screen, could you please choose translation from French to English?
I see raise hand participants interpretation icon.
You click on that.
Interpretation?
Right. And you choose English.
Yes.
All right. Okay, so I'm going to ask the MP to repeat his question, and you will be able to answer. Please, Mr. Desilets.
Merci, on repart le chronomètre.
Thank you. Okay, here we go again. Master Corporal, can you tell me the following? I mean, I understand you had a bad experience, but you seem convinced that it will not function with this company. Can you tell me what are you basing yourself on when you're saying this with such certainty?
Mr. Chair and Member of Parliament Luc Desilets, I didn't get to finish my introduction. However, as a 30-year veteran who processed education training benefit claims for soldiers serving in the Canadian Armed Forces, I had no understanding or reason or knowledge that the education training benefit was being farmed out to a third-party contractor. I had asked my caseworker who was handling this. They had refused to tell me. I never received approval from them. I had no contact from them, nothing. This is a third-party contractor, the Veteran Affairs Canada, apparently farmed out my $80,000 education training benefit to administer for me. And my experience with these third-party contractors is not a healthy one. It has not been a positive experience.
On a entendu de la part du...
We heard from the department that there will be about 100 case managers who provided feedback to assess the situation when it comes to changing the system. But it sounded to me that you were saying that no one was consulted and no one was involved in this process. Do you really feel that that was the case?
Absolutely. I do not feel that veterans were contacted, reached out. I currently have a second level in process contesting services I had with Canadian Veterans Vocational Rehabilitation Services, and they have somewhere of 180 days to respond to these levels of complaints that we have. So I still have one that's in the queue right now from services I received from third-party contractors. So yeah, no, it's not. We're not being consulted, and no, it's an unhealthy relationship I've seen.
15 seconds. Okay.
Allez-y, c'est correct.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. Desilets. And I would like to invite Mr. Lindsay Matheson for the next 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
Yes, thank you so much, Master Corporal Carter, for your service, for your time here with us today. Just quickly, you had said that your relationship with the third-party service provider was horrible, but could you talk to us about how important that relationship is with your case manager, that they have the time to provide that one-on-one relationship building, that trust building with the veterans that they serve?
I've had 4 caseworkers, 3 in Calgary, and 1 in Vancouver Island. I had a very close connection with 1 out of the 4 caseworkers who I connected with, melded with, had coffee with several times, and had a healthy relationship. And that was because that caseworker took the time to spend time with me and learn who I was.
So that time is really, really key, that they have the ability to connect with that veteran so that they can truly understand what's necessary. I appreciate that. And I know I have very little time, and so unfortunately with the rest of my time, I would like to move the motion that my colleague on Thursday had provided to this committee, that Veterans Affairs Canada provide to the committee a copy of the contract for rehabilitation services between VAC and partners in Canadian Veterans Rehabilitation Services by November 25th, 2022. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much. We already have a copy of that. Yeah. Okay, so we have a motion on the table, and you already have a copy of that, but we're going to send it to you again, and so we'll be able to discuss it. So please, Mr. Corporal Retired Kelly Carter, stay with us a few minutes. Just a few seconds. So, Ms. Matheson, can you speak about this motion, please, at the time?
Well, and I know that this is a pretty straightforward. It's just to have that documentation provided to the committee officially for that contract, so that we have a better context moving forward. As now we have 2 more meetings to discuss this specific contract, and it was discussed at the previous meeting. So I would just move. I think it's pretty simple.
Thank you so much. Mr. Casey?
Mr. Chair, given the time constraints and the concerns over proprietary information, this requires a longer conversation than the 1.5 minutes we have left. I move to adjourn debate on this motion.